channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses.
Hey, my name's Cordy and I'm here to sell you a fingerpicking course, and I've seen loads of courses online telling you how to fingerpick and they're all wrong. This is actually the correct system to be using.
No, not really. I wanted to do a video talking about this idea that I've seen sort of perpetuated online a bit, and in a few places, I guess maybe part of the reason that someone might say this thing would be because they've had their taste buds ruined by seeing a lot of a certain type of video, and it has led them to the conclusion that YouTube guitar teachers kind of suck. So I wanted to talk about, from my point of view, how I use YouTube, how I create for YouTube. Create's a bit of a word, but you know, how the reason I do what I do on YouTube, and some thinking maybe for how to navigate some of this stuff, and maybe have some expectations about what you could get out of certain YouTube channels. So, first of all, we've all seen probably some adverts advocating for systems that make everything really easy, and we've seen sort of the videos that are saying this one simple trick, this hack, these kind of things. For me personally, generally if you see that in the title of a video, you'd probably think, right, this is going to be bollocks, right? To some extent you'd probably be correct, particularly I would say if it's a paid advert that you see showed in front of someone else's video, right? So those kinds of things are literally selling courses, and they're probably from someone you've not heard of before, and they're probably, you start to get a sense for, I think, when you're being sold a system. Now there are existing systems for learning guitar, you know, there are like a Jody Fisher method, there's the Berkeley method, there's obviously kind of grade schools and all that sort of stuff. You probably don't need some dickhead's system for how to get from being a beginner to a master. If you're seeing that sort of thing, I think you can probably be fairly rest assured that it might be bollocks. That's my opinion on that. I don't know if you've got some exceptions that you might want to let people know about that you've found use in, but I think generally the things that are advertised as kind of one simple thing or whatever, or, you know, this totally revolutionized the way I see whatever, these kinds of things that make it out that you can learn something of value really quickly, I think be skeptical of those is what I'd say. Now, of course, you see things like Musician, and you see things like TrueFire, I think Fender Play, those things I think probably have a bit more value than some of the other things that I've seen which involve a guitar by a fireplace or something, or, you know, people bashing their heads against the wall saying I tried to learn guitar 17 times, but I never got it until I tried this. I think there's a way to differentiate between bollocks, and the thing I really like about TrueFire, incidentally, is that they're using professional musicians and really good musicians to teach the things that matter to them. Now, this is how I try to approach this YouTube thing. So I'd also be wary of people that are making a claim to authority, this kind of thing, because for me, musicianship and being a musician and all that sort of stuff, there's a whole lot of it which is intensely personal, and there's a whole lot of it which people disagree on, there's a whole lot of it which is theoretical, and in any case, you might not really even agree with the person making the video or see things in the same way. You don't know what people's background might be. So again, if someone is saying that this is the right way, or this is the only way, or these sorts of things, I'd be wary. And maybe if you've got another friend who plays guitar, you might want to say, is this true or whatever? You know, like I've heard people say the only way to pick fast is to kind of do this sort of thing. And you can, if you're experienced enough, point and say, well, that's not true, because I could show you 17 different professional guitarists who pick in completely different ways to each other and to what you're suggesting. Like, there are people that will, false prophets, I guess, people that will say things have to be a certain way, be wary of those as well. One thing to watch out for as well is people that are obviously trying to sell a course or something like that. And if they are, then maybe you ask, well, are they an expert in this thing that they're selling? And that is part of the reason I try to include examples of my own playing in every video. There's kind of a few different reasons for that, but one of them is that I want to be playing guitar in every single video because I'm a guitarist, or I'm trying to be. And two is you can get a sense from that whether this person plays anything like you want to, or whether they can play at all. And I think those two things hand in hand can kind of then let you know what you're dealing with. So for instance, I wouldn't want to take a guitar lesson from someone who had never played a note for me. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't, there's a bit of this element of if someone is teaching the thing, you want to maybe see them do some of the thing. That's part of the reason I do those introduction videos, and today's one was a bit different actually. So this is on to why and how I do the YouTube thing. So for me personally, I started off doing YouTube just uploading, just playing, right? And at some point then I started doing some of this gear stuff, and from doing the gear stuff, people would ask about certain things. Now I'm self-taught, and for that reason I've always been a little bit on the fence about giving lessons at all, right? I've had piano lessons from the age of 5 to 14, so I've got plenty of classical theory knowledge and all that sort of stuff. Did up to grade 6 in piano, did grade 5 theory, and when I was 16 on guitar, which I was self-taught, I did grade 8 guitar, whatever that means. Now plenty of people can get to grade 8 guitar. It doesn't mean you're a great guitarist or anything, and it certainly for me doesn't mean that I'd think that I could be a good teacher. But what I can talk about is the stuff that people ask me about. So that's where this started. So people would say, well, what are you thinking when you're playing? Or what were you doing for this lick? And that's kind of been the organic approach for me. So I'm not generally saying that I'm an authority on any of this stuff. And I'm not really trying to sell you anything particularly, except for you can buy presets and that sort of stuff if you want, or you could jump over to Patreon and support in that way if you choose to, and get backing tracks and tabs and all that sort of stuff. But in general, I don't have this overarching course or anything like that because I haven't been bothered to write one, and I don't have time at the moment. But you know, people do ask me for that sort of thing, and I kind of, for me, the way that I've got through music is kind of stumbled through bits and pieces, taught myself. And one thing that I find really useful as a concept is to try and, as soon as you start learning a thing, start to make music with it, is kind of been my approach. Now, this takes me on to the start of this video. So yesterday you may have noticed that I was kind of thinking about getting more into fingerstyle. And I watched some Mike Dawes and Tommy Emmanuel stuff. Now these guys are total, obviously, masters of their craft. And in some ways, I think they may have forgotten some things early on in the process, right? And so I think in some ways, sometimes on YouTube, you can find people that are at the start of a journey. So for example, I found a really good Ben Eller set of videos on selective picking. And there are things like this that exist, and you might find there are people, you know, breaking down specific songs, specific licks. I think that sort of stuff on YouTube can be really good. So I'd look for kind of conceptual stuff. So if you're looking at a specific technique, you could look up on YouTube, use the search function and find, you know, selective picking, if you know what the name is, hybrid picking, these sorts of things. And then in that way, hopefully you'd find specific sources of information. And in that way, you might also find there are some teachers that you trust on this, or that think in the same way that you do, or yeah, that sort of stuff. I think that would be what I'd encourage. Now, anyway, onto this fingerstyle thing. I've not looked on YouTube yet for what people recommend. I've looked on TrueFire for the Mike Dawes, Tommy Emmanuel thing. And I think the first thing that jumps out at me as something that I need to work on especially well is what I want to talk about here. Very quickly, what I've started to realize about my playing in relation to Tommy Emmanuel and Mike Dawes is that I'm shit, is that they have a very active thumb. My right hand wants to do this kind of thing, where I'm passing the job of the bass and then alternating with the kind of rest of the hand. It's sort of like a stride piano thing, like do, da, 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 da. However, what I've noticed is that they have this thing going on where the thumb is actually twice as active as mine. And that's what I've realized that I need to address first, I think, in my finger picking, which was what I was messing around with in that introduction. So I need to get comfortable with this idea of the thumb being this kind of constant thing. Instead of how I would normally play this, where the thumb's kind of doing half the work and the other parts, the fingers, are doing the other half. Because, and where I want to get to with this fingerstyle thing will, I think, involve some matter of independence, and I need to be able to develop that. And so what I did was write a little piece of music which meant that I was forced to try and get this right. And you see, obviously I'm not very good at it. And all I'm doing there is kind of playing, so I'm on the, let me just get rid of the capo. I'd be playing like a G, the D's open there, and I've got a C sharp at the 4th fret. And I've got this A held down ready for when my right hand decides that it can actually do this. So I just start with that as an ostinato, moving up to the A then from the G, and then try and bring in this A here and place that somewhere intentionally. So I'm trying it on beat 1 at the moment. Didn't get there. And then maybe you think, right, I want to place that on 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And trying to teach this to you, or trying to show you what I'm trying to do to teach myself this. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. I'm not an expert on this particular topic, fingerstyle playing, but what I've instantly identified by being rubbish at it is that I need to work on this one specific thing. So if I was to call this video sort of something, I don't know, maybe I call it a primer for fingerstyle picking, or one thing that I needed to work on related to fingerstyle picking. But what I'd be doing here in the context of YouTube teaching is just sharing a thing that I'm not an expert on, which is important because sometimes you can learn things from people who aren't experts, or they could show you what they're working on, which is a big part of what I'm trying to do on YouTube as well, rather than saying I'm an expert on any of this. And hopefully from that, they might even be able to show you like a little thing that they're working on right now, which you'll be able to get on my Patreon, selling you something. But some people might be able to show you a bit of the journey, rather than some topic which they might be so far ahead in that it's difficult to know how much they're missing in terms of building the foundations of the thing. So that for me was a way that I thought, well, yeah, that shows me that on YouTube you could learn certain things from people, particularly if they speak and communicate in a way that you dig, things that maybe they're not an expert in even. So to some extent, yeah, so you wouldn't want a person who's not an expert in a thing writing you the curriculum and presenting it, but you might find that someone who's not an expert, who is gradually teaching themselves the thing, might end up with quite a good method of getting there. But I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you have kind of favorite people who teach on YouTube or whatever? Do you find that there are certain channels that kind of do suck? Do you think you're getting sold a lot of courses? There are channels that I really like: Bob Reynolds, David Beebe, exceptional teacher and a real guitar teacher, Tom Quayle, Justin Guitar I think is really good, Scott's Bass Lessons, Jens Larson, of course, or is it Jens? It might be Jens. Really good for jazz stuff. Probably missing a bunch. Also, you know, if you think you're trying to learn a specific song, you put that in, you might find that Paul Davids used to do some really kind of cool lessons, sort of teaching. I think there's people that teach concepts quite well. But yeah, I'd be interested to know your thoughts. I think that's kind of where I'm coming from with this. It's not necessarily that I'm, and also, by the way, my lessons on YouTube don't necessarily do huge numbers. So if I was being fully money driven with this, I might just focus on gear stuff or some other topic. But I feel like younger me might have benefited from older me making some of these types of videos. I hope you feel some kind of use in some of this stuff some of the time, maybe. But yeah, that's the little fingerstyle thing that I'm working on at the moment, getting the thumb more active. I'll put the tab for that up on Patreon with the backing track selling. Also, if you want to be sold one of these, I think Lenny's got a few more weeks before she's going to start stopping these for a baby. But yeah, they're warm for practicing guitar. I'll catch you in another video soon. Feel free to like and subscribe, by the way. If you want more lessons, there is a lessons and licks playlist. And yeah, cheers.